My name is Anil Gupta, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Multidots. I recently moved into San Francisco. It's a big move from India, and today I'm going to talk about an interesting, the business case that we dealt with one of our customer and client, for last 7 years, Sneaker News. So. We had an interesting implementation on that side. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the process that we went through and the kind of solution that we, at the end came up with. So this is a little bit about Sneaker News. So they are, probably you can call them as a CNN of geeks. They are the biggest encyclopedia of the sneaker news and the sneakers around the world. They have a community of, I think, more than 8.3 million, the sneaker fans who follows the sneaker news for interesting, this sneaker release and sneaker related informations. They are primarily into digital and online media, but they also have some of the, the print media as well. And I think 4 years ago, when we started to work with them, they had this. This is their old workflow, and in this workflow, they had two assets. One is sneakernews.com, and another one is Jordan's Daily. They both were like pretty simple WordPress setup, but there was one interesting information which was release data, right? So all the sneakers around the world by different brands, that releases is something which was a special kind of data set. When we look at those data set, it has, I think, more than 50 different data points, and those data points are like variety of different attributes that goes on and related to that release. So the problem at that time was their editorial team. They had to update two different WordPress system in order to release those information or update those posts, special types of posts on their website. So that was actually adding up a problem of duplication of data and managing two different systems. So that was the key problem, and that problem was going to get bigger because they were planning to launch more digital assets, and that release information has been the common information point, in all going to be a common element in all the system. And considering the number of data that they have been updating on their different applications, it was a big headache for the editorial team because it was slowing down the whole process in order to update into different system. So this is a kind of their future plan at that time. So two websites, they were planning to build two more websites, wanted to build a mobile app, wanted to build another 2 or 3 other apps, and all these applications has the sneaker release information has been the common the entity among all of them. So we immediately sensed a need to decouple the entire this release information and come up with a central repository where we can store those data and maintain that. Now the challenge at that time for us was whatever system that we pick up as a central repository, at that time they had around 12,000 plus sneaker repositories, like sneaker data. And they have estimated that over the period of few years, that data is growing to be around 50,000 plus. So it's a kind of very large data set that we had to deal with. It has to communicate with not only to the WordPress but several other kind of system. And when it comes to managing those release information, for all those 40 to 50 data points, some of them were manual, right? But they also wanted to have a solution or a system where all those information can be updated automatically, so they don't have to invest a lot of time in order to update those data. and many of them has some custom rules. So we had to keep all these things in mind while we think about repository, and we came up with a solution where we kind of decouple whole release information, build a new Sneaker repository so that it can communicate with REST API to multiple different systems. So we had a 4 WordPress application, couple of mobile application, and this 50,000 plus release information that gets pushed to all the different systems and get updated in all those applications. So this is a kind of the solution that we came up with, and the final implementation that looks something like this, where Sneaker News, app, Jordan's Daily, they all have this Sneaker release information, that is all actually getting updated and pushed from the this repository that we built. And we use the WordPress REST API, in order to pull those data from the repository. And there was some interesting challenge while working on this, and some of them were like how we will sync the comments and ratings of different data and will share among the different system. So this is a kind of a new workflow where editorial team now just update the repository, and that repository actually pushes the data among the different systems. And this data fetching part is something where we did some automation. So now instead of this 50 different information, they just have to update maybe 10 or 12, and rest of the other data points actually goes to like eBay and Nike and Air Jordan, all the different websites. It kind of collects some information over there, so data entry get reduced. The final result was like they are publishing around 100 to 150 new Sneaker release information on the repository, and this 12,000 plus data actually get pushed to all these 6 different systems. And many times, some of the information, for example, if there is a sneaker detail, right? Sneaker which is kind of outdated, or they don't want to, they have announced that they are going to release, but now the release has been pushed back, or there is a date change in the release date or something. So earlier their editorial team had to go to all these different systems, has to manually update it. Now, with this, once they update it to one repository, it automatically update the rest of the other data sets, so that those operations has reduced almost their 65% of, the publishing and operation time. 10 million plus page views every month that is being served by Sneaker News and Jordan's Daily, and 4 different WordPress setup is being updated with this 12,000 plus the Sneaker release information every day, whenever there is a change. And the great thing is everything works super fast. So that was the big actually need, that whatever we do, we have to make sure that it's fast and performing on a lightning speed. So I would say these were like key takeaways. So as I say, this implementation was 4 years old. While doing this, we learned a lot and found a lot of different interesting actually solution to solve the same problem. So in this particular case, what we did is we made WordPress as a child, and other system can update WordPress through REST API, where WordPress websites are a child. So Sneaker News, Jordan's Daily, they are not the master websites, but those are like child website which is being updated by an external repository. There is also a new experiment that we are doing, where we are trying to make this repository as a headless WordPress. So it will be a headless WordPress. We will store this 50,000 plus Sneaker release information, and then in that case a WordPress is a master and rest of the other applications are child. So we are going to do some A/B testing between like a non-WordPress custom tool as a repository and WordPress as a master repository, and we're kind of going to learn how it impacts in performance and the rest of the other operations. And yeah, like decoupling the whole common elements or special kind of data set and creating a new system and integrating that with maybe WordPress and mobile app or other application is something that we found has been very, very useful to the editorial team, and it has solved a big pain. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share on a query quick basis. Yeah.
At some point you mentioned that you try to pull data off multiple sites.
Yeah.
What do you use?
To data, getting a pull from the repository.
You mentioned that you're looking at eBay.
Right. So we use, I mean, I don't have like a granular detail on that part, but I think we built some custom scripts and algorithms in order to fetch some certain kind of information. So some of the websites, if they have API or endpoints, we have utilized them. In some cases, the Sneaker News has an account, backend access to some platform where we utilize some of those APIs and credentials.
What are you doing for performance in that central repository?
So for the performance side, one thing that we did was, when we decided to pick up a technology stack for the repository, we tried to make it lean and thin. So we pretty much utilized a core object-based PHP script. So we haven't utilized any kind of framework that kind of create some overhead on the API response and processing. So it's just a plain script, and we gave them a very simple, one screen interface where they can just push some of this release information, and rest of the other data points will be grabbed from the third-party system and will make the entire data set ready to publish on the websites.
You're not caching your...
I think we have implemented that, but I don't have much idea about that. But yes, I think we have implemented some of the caching for sure.
You mentioned that you did a clean interface on the repository, right?
Yeah.
So why put WordPress on top of it if it's working?
Sorry, say that again?
You mentioned that you already have a clean interface on the repository. Super
Right.
simple to enter data. Why put WordPress on top of it?
We haven't put the WordPress
So
on top of
you
that.
said on the final slide, you said you want to use WordPress on the master repository.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it's already clean, it's smooth. Why mess with it?
Right.
Why add WordPress to it?
Correct. So it's a kind of so right now as of now the editorial team, the interface that they have, what we see is very simple and just they just put some data points. Now their need is kind of constantly changing. So they want to integrate like comments from the other different systems. So now they need a little bit more advanced interface in order to manage and integrate with the other application. So that's where we see that probably the WordPress as a headless CMS, as a backend, can be something where the editorial team doesn't have to learn a completely new interface in order to update, all the different data points. So that's something that we are, again, it's a kind of experiment. So we are just trying to move all this data and run it with that, and then we'll run with that editorial team, and then we'll see, if this is a kind of interface which fulfills their need, some of the new things that they want to build. And there are some custom rules actually. So all this data doesn't just go to all these 6 applications straight away, but they have set up some rules like, some Jordan related updates should go to the app, few data should not go to the app, but should just go to the Jordan's Daily. So we have, we haven't provided the interface to manage those rules. And me and my team, we are exploring if we can build such kind of rules within the WordPress backend where they have this data set. So then we will probably learn whether that experiment works out or not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
All right, thank you.